Greetings and salutations. I hope this video finds you doing well. This is an old-fashioned screencast. We're sitting here on my Linux Mint desktop, and I want to just ramble on for a little while about some stuff that I'm into, and also give you a little update about my experience thus far with Linux Mint Debian Edition 6 being my main operating system on my main machine. I have been running this since I posted the video where I installed Linux Mint Debian Edition in a virtual machine. We poked around with it, and I want to talk a little bit about that experience as well. Of course, there were things that I got wrong in that video, and so if you hang around, I'll tell you what I got wrong and how I figured that out. So, should be pretty cool. Also on the way in this video, I am going to talk a great deal about virtual machines. I'm getting back into playing around with virtualization in a big way. Those of you who are longtime followers of the channel may remember that for a while there, I didn't do a lot with it. My main computer wouldn't run virtual machines properly. They were extremely slow, and it turned out it was because I had these weird old Xeon processors. See, I got a really good deal on this old Dell pedestal server workstation thing, and I used that as my main computer. We called it Big Boy. Well, this computer's called Big Boy 2, but this was Big Boy 2 technically number-wise, and we're on Big Boy 3 right now. Anyway, that computer was just strange in a lot of ways, and it didn't like running virtualization, so I didn't. So finally, the video card in that machine got to the point where it was not supported anymore, and I couldn't upgrade, and that was the end of that, so I got rid of it. And thus is the reason why I decided that I wanted an AMD Ryzen system. And so that's what we have here is an AMD Ryzen 5. It's a 3400G with the onboard Radeon Vega graphics. It has been flawless. It's a beautiful machine. I bought this a while ago. $300 ready to go from a computer shop in upstate New York. And if I had sat down and tried to figure out what I wanted in a computer, this would have been it, because I have some needs. Okay, let's talk about my needs. First thing I needed was an NVMe drive. I wanted the fastest possible storage that I could get my hands on. So this machine came with that installed. Very nice Samsung. We'll look at that in a moment here, because I want to talk about drives. And also this machine came with a Blu-ray drive installed. Beautiful thing. Now, many people these days do not fool around with optical media at all. I do. I do a lot. First of all, I have lots of CDs, and I work in radio, and one of my jobs at the radio station is I am the librarian. I put music into the automation system, and a lot of that comes from compact discs, my own compact discs, especially if it's older music. Now, if it's new music, then I'm downloading high-res files and putting them directly into the system. So at this stage of the game, that's how the record companies distribute music to radio stations. But I still want to have that around. And I also burn CDs all the time for my own listening enjoyment and to give to other people. So it's nice to have that drive in there, and it is in the machine. And what else came with it? 32 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, it's just simple things that I had lived without for way too long, like USB 3. Yeah, I mean, I had USB 2 machines everywhere, and it was like, God, this is slow. So now I can take an adapter and plug a laptop-size hard drive into this adapter and plug it in the front of the machine and get full speed out of it. It's just marvelous. So yeah, it was stuff like that. I just really needed a new computer. Now, I had been running just regular Linux Mint on this machine. Actually, when I first got it, I put LMDE 5 on it, which was the version before LMDE 6. I guess it is. That's the way it works, ain't it? Anyway, and the problem that I had with that one is that the kernel actually didn't have the right modules to run the AMD graphics, and I wasn't getting accelerated graphics. I had all kinds of weird issues. So, of course, with LMDE 6, no problem, and the Ubuntu version of Linux Mint, no issue whatsoever. That's one of the reasons I wanted AMD as well. I didn't have to install any drivers. They're already in the kernel. I don't have to do any of that with this machine, which is one of the reasons that I was able to move to LMDE 6 relatively easily, is because I knew that would be in there. The Debian edition of Linux Mint doesn't give you a driver manager. There are a few point-and-click tools that only apply to Ubuntu that you don't get in Debian. So if you want to chase drivers or whatever, you're going to have to do that from a command line. So if you're unfamiliar with that and you don't want to play around in the terminal, then that's a problem. But I don't have a problem with that. So this has been very nice. LMDE 6 has just been super stable. Now, I did have one problem. I ran into one issue with LMDE 6, and only one, and it's a tiny one. I use the Thunderbird mail client, and for many, many years I have had Thunderbird set up where it will play the old AOL "You've Got Mail" when I get mail, because you can set a sound file in there. You can have it say anything you want to as long as you record it, or you could use a bell or whatever, whatever sound you wanted, And it didn't work in LMDE 6 properly. For some reason, the sound would play, and then it would be a big pop at the end. Now, at first, I thought this was due to some sort of, it's actually a thing they've done in the Linux kernel. I have to show you so that you understand. So I'm going to go into scripts here, and I'm going to get this Linux Mint 21 install script that I had written a while back, because what you have to do with a lot of desktop computers these days is after you install Linux, you have to add this line, options, right here. See this? It says Intel Power Save 0. And like this, basically you put that whole line in there, and you put it into this file, which is etc and modprobe.d alsa-base conf. You have to put that in there. What does that mean? Well, the kernel now will attempt to turn off the sound card when it's not in use. This is a power saving measure, mainly for laptops. In laptops, it doesn't seem to be an issue. I don't have to do this. I'm not getting clicks and pops in the sound. However, in desktops, at least everyone that I've played with, you get this situation where you play a sound and it starts out with a pop, then the sound plays, and then if you listen carefully, after no sound is played for a while, you get another pop and it turns off. Another thing is, on some systems, when that turns off, because you turn that sound card off, you'll get a killer hum in your speakers or your headphones. Be like they're going, So this is how you turn that off. Basically, you tell the kernel, leave that sound card on all the time, and then that eliminates the problem. Now, I'm showing you this because if I just alluded to it, there would be 40 comments of people saying, "What are you talking about?" Well, now you know. So that's why I'm showing you that. Anyway, I thought that it had something to do with that. No, it didn't at all. What it has to do with is the fact that Linux Mint Debian Edition is running Pipewire these days, not Pulse Audio. And generally speaking, for everything else that I've done, I've had no issues. As a matter of fact, I think it sounds a little better. And I'm good with that. And if it runs into an application that's looking for a Pulse Audio, it will emulate it. Pipewire is smart enough to know, okay, give it what it needs. For whatever reason, in good old Thunderbird, that wasn't working. And so my solution to that problem was simply to turn that off. And I'll tell you why. I got sick and tired of hearing, "You got mail," every time I opened up the mail client anyway. And so I just said, I can just let that go. So not only did I just turn that off on this machine, I turned it off on all of my machines so I don't have to hear, "You've got mail" anymore. So that's how I dealt with it. I've heard some other people that have had more major issues, like audio out of sync when they're playing videos and stuff. I don't have any problem like that. Everything's working the way it should. That was the one problem I found with LMDE 6. It has been super stable, and it has run really, really, really well. So one of the things that I just recently did, just a day or two ago now, was to add this directory into my system. We are looking here at the, make that a little bit bigger for low-res devices. We are looking at the root directory on this machine. You'll notice here we have VM, and it's a little hard to see because of the coloration, but deal with it. And what that is a drive that I have installed in the machine. And that drive is specifically for virtual machines. So when I open up the VirtualBox software, it knows to look for the virtual machines there. That is a Samsung drive. And I wanted to actually look in disks because I wanted to see what the numbers are on this. I really, really, really like Samsung SSDs. Although I have another machine that I just retired that had a couple of SanDisk SSDs in it for years that had no issue. There was a 64 gigabyte boot drive, which was a SanDisk, and then there was a 500 gigabyte drive, which is home directory. So the main drive in this machine is a Samsung SSD 970 Evo Plus, 1 terabyte, and that's an NVMe drive. I told you I need me an NVMe drive, boys and girls, and so do you. If you get a new machine, get an NVMe drive. They are awesome. And so what I did was I added to this machine, and that's my boot drive there, and then also this is my home directory. So that has partitions on it. And then here, I just installed this Samsung. This is it's an 860 Evo 1 terabyte. Now this one is an SSD version, so it is now SDA1. And it is the main drive that I had been using in the old big boy, the one that I was just talking about that I had to get rid of. And so I just kept that drive and I blanked it out, and I decided to put it in this machine. And it's got about a year of uptime on it. It's never given me an error. There's no problems with it. And the reason why I'm using another drive for VMs is two things. Number one, just having it on a different drive means that you're not putting all the write cycles on my main SSD. And the other thing is that since the VMs live in a directory that's not in my home directory, when I do backups of my home directory, which is how I have my backup software set up, I don't actually back up those VMs because they're huge files. I mean, that's crazy, right? Who wants to back up giant VM files? And so that killed a couple of birds with one stone. And also I was able to, for you real nerds and geeks out there, I was able to format my VM drive with XFS instead of ext4. I'm trying that out. I got into a big conversation with my friend Vincent Maggard from Open Source Tonight. If you've seen his channel, check him out. He does a lot of great Linux content. He's working on a series teaching you how to do Python. It's very cool indeed. Anyway, we got into a discussion about the merits of XFS versus ext4. I guess about 5 or 6 years ago I did that, and I didn't like XFS because I had some issues with it. Especially, I was doing it on a really small laptop with no real juice to it too. XFS on a desktop is really not the greatest file system for Linux. I was going to say operating system. No, because you just don't get the advantages of it. In a desktop type environment, you're really not having that intense read-write thing. But if you are working on huge video files like Vince does, because that's his thing, then you're going to get some benefits out of that. And apparently there's benefits for storing virtual machines on XFS as well, because it's a multi-threaded file system. What it does is it allows the system to have more than one thread reading and writing on the same file at the same time. I don't know whether VirtualBox does that or not with the individual machine, but I'm thinking about what if you have more than one virtual machine open at a time and that sort of thing, right? So that's what we're looking at here. Now, we're looking at VirtualBox. This is my virtualizer of choice. I've mentioned this in past videos. People very often say, well, Joe, why do you use VirtualBox? Why is this what you want? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it's cross-platform. In other words, I can install this on Windows or I can install this on Mac. No big deal. And you can actually take virtual machines from your Mac and put it on your Windows machine, and you can do all kinds of stuff. It is a cross-platform testing piece of software that is known by everybody on the planet who's into this sort of thing. So that makes it very cool. That means there's lots of documentation. There's a lot of people using it. I like cross-platform software. That's number one. Number two, it's very logical to me. This is when I first started playing around with virtualization probably about 10 or 15 years ago with VMware. And I remember being just completely blown away watching Windows XP boot on my Windows 7 machine. It was just, to me, it was like the coolest thing ever. I was just like, wow, how is this happening? And so I started out with that, and then I migrated over to Oracle's VirtualBox because it is available as a free download, and it's open. Most of it's open source, let's put it that way. They do have some closed source stuff that you can go get and install, but I don't mind. It's okay. I trust Oracle a lot more than I trust some other big companies. Let's just put it that way. I got no issue with it, right? So this allows you to install any operating system you like. I have a formula for how I do this pretty much, and that is that I create a virtual machine with a 40 gigabyte hard drive and 4 gigabytes of memory, and I give it 3 processor cores. And this actually emulates a machine that I had years ago that was an AMD with a 3-core processor in it. Remember those, the Athlons, and they had the 3-core processors? They were really cool, especially if you could get it to multi-thread, which was, you could do that, so you could get yourself 6 threads, and this was many, many years ago. They were actually better chips than people give them credit for. I had one of those machines that ran for 10 years, no issues. Then it finally just got too old and I had to get rid of it. Sip of coffee, that's what that was. I hope you have your beverage. So, anyway, I have this kind of set formula that I use. 40 gigabyte hard drive because it's a manageable size, even if the VM expands out and I can have as many as I want. I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM on this machine, so I can fire up all of these 4 virtual machines at the same time, and it doesn't even feel it. Matter of fact, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Now remember, I am running the recording software. It does take a little bit away from the performance of the machine. Not much, but this is what happens when I boot 3 versions of Linux Mint. We have regular Linux Mint with the Cinnamon desktop, Linux Mint with the XFCE desktop, we've got LMDE 6 in here, and we've got Ubuntu 2204. So those are the VMs that I have in right now. So, and it's going to warn me, and I go, yep, I'm going to start them all at once. Let's see what happens. And if I go here, let's see, let me get out of here and do this. So you guys can see what's going on a little better. All of those virtual machines are booting up. So that's booting up 4 computers at once on this machine from that Samsung SSD I was just talking about, using XFS with the multi-thread. See, that's when the multi-thread is going to kick in, the ability to read and write from more than one thread with XFS. That's where it's going to help you, is right there, and it just did it. So let's go ahead and log in. I can show you guys what I've been playing with. I was playing with Pop! OS earlier today, but I went ahead and deleted it because, quite frankly, I didn't like it. I played with it enough to know that it wasn't something that I really wanted to play with. So here is Linux Mint with the XFCE desktop, running the old Mint X theme. This is one of my, I don't know, man. This might end up being. Somebody said, can you take LMDE and run XFCE on it? I'm sure you can. You can go and download, super easy, just install the XFCE desktop and then switch it over. But you're probably not going to get all the little tweaks that Linux Mint has done to make that work really well. So yeah. So I just made Thunar. Thunar, by the way, is the file manager for XFCE. Just love it. So let's get a terminal here in this machine, and we're going to, just so they have something to do, we will full screen our terminal, and we're going to run htop in them. Well, I didn't install it. Must have htop. It's an important program. Life without htop is sad. Okay, there's htop. Now that'll show you what we got going in this machine. So like I said, it's 3 gigabytes of, or rather 4 gigabytes of memory. Of course, it kind of rounds down a little bit. And the XFCE desktop here is only using about 600 megabytes. And we're using none of the swap file. So that is Linux Mint XFCE. So let's switch over here and we'll take a look at this one. This is going to be the regular Linux Mint. My super secret, super safe password that people have been trying to figure out for years. Not telling. Okay, let's open up our terminal yet again. And we'll full screen that terminal. Actually, if I don't I can do this, watch. If I don't full screen the terminal, which is F11, and then I make it bigger, and then full screen it, we get bigger fonts. Okay, htop should be in here, and you're going to see we got exactly the same thing. So let me go over here and switch. Okay, when you're working with virtual machines, the right control key will switch you if you're focused in the machine, like here now. So if I do alternate control T, right? Okay, I wasn't focused in the machine. Take 2 on that. Okay, if I click in the machine, which is where I am now, I'm in this machine. Right? Yeah, I'm in that machine. And I don't need help, thank you. I didn't mean to click that. Okay. Now if I do this, I open up another terminal in the virtual machine. See? That's what I'm trying to do. Something that should take 2 seconds to show you guys. Whenever that thing is recording, you get into these weird little things. Anyway, so if you hit the right control key, now you switch back to the host. So if I do alternate control and T to open a terminal, this is a terminal on the host. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so what I want to do is switch out of that, and we'll switch over here to, see that I'm in there, and then I do it again, and we go here, and we'll sign into Ubuntu. This is just vanilla Ubuntu. This is all this is. I have 2 laptops that I run Ubuntu on, and just vanilla Ubuntu, and the reason why I run it is because I don't feel like trying to reinstall everything at this point, although I'm not super happy with Ubuntu because some of the stuff that they've done lately and whatever else, but at the same time I find it to be a very stable and useful operating system, so I have it on my file server in here, I have it on 2 laptops. And so there you go. So let's go into Ubuntu and open up a terminal here as well. So we can just keep doing the same thing, you know. Okay, make it a little bigger. And we'll do F11 and we'll run htop. Alright, so we have all of these. Have I got all the virtual machines running? Let's see. Yes. Oh no, I didn't sign into this one. So let's make sure this one's up and running. Now this is what I find amazing, and the reason why I'm going through all this stuff to show you this. Okay, this is LMDE 5, and I ended up reinstalling LMDE 5 since I did the video, because when I was going through showing you guys some configurations, I actually kind of messed things up a little bit, so I started over. No, it all worked for the video. Everything I said in the video was correct. It was just that I didn't like the way it turned out somewhat, so I redid it anyway. So, okay. H-top. Boom. So we have all of these machines are up and running. Like I said, 4 gigabytes of RAM. And we can go over here. I can just confirm that that's what's happening. Actually, I want that one. I want that view. Yep. And I'll come back over here. Let's put that as the front-facing application. Now, with all of this running and recording video, let's see how much resources we are using on the host machine. Capturing video. Now, look at the percentages being taken from the CPU there. In total, we're using 12.7 gigabytes of memory. And we also are swapping out 3.84 megabytes of swapped pages for whatever reason. Now, that swap, I wanted to talk about that because this has come up in many different videos, and at this point, if you're still watching this, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but you have to have a little swap on your systems. A lot of people these days that got 64, 128 gigabytes of RAM, they're saying, why should I have a swap space? And I tell them every time exactly the same thing. The developers of the Linux kernel want you to have a small bit of swap space on your machine. This is why Ubuntu, when it installs, automatically does not create a swap partition anymore. It creates a swap file. There is no difference in performance if you have a swap file or a swap partition. None. However, on certain machines, I will put a swap partition on the system. And the reason why I do that is because I don't like the idea of having really big swap files. Right? So if you have large swap files on a computer, then they're going to get fragmented and that sort of thing. So if I'm going to have a swap partition that is 4 gigabytes or larger, which I do with low memory machines, then I will put it in a swap partition. As a matter of fact, let me show you that. Here's what we'll do. We will log into another machine here on the network. And this one is one of the laptops that's running Ubuntu. Okay. Let me full screen that. We got all that crap running in the background to be confusing. One thing you do lose with Linux Mint Debian Edition in your terminal is the fact that you can't have transparency. Apparently, Ubuntu hacks that back into GNOME terminal. That's not a standard feature. I learned that. I can live without it, but I do like a slightly transparent background. This would be another reason to think about switching to the XFCE desktop in LMDE 6, wouldn't it? Okay, so what are we doing? We're going to log into... No. And this is... By the way, that little command there, if you're new to the channel, that is a kind of a shortcut that I use to get to machines on the network without having to type in the entire IP address. Most modern switchers these days that you get from your ISPs do not run name servers, so you have to use IPs, and that's how I get around it. I could run, well, no I can't, it's theirs, that's right. could hook up another machine that's all a machine running in the corner, sucking up power all the time. And the only thing it does is run a name server so that you can use host names to get to computers on your local network for SSH. I mean, if you had 100 machines, sure, that would make sense, but I can just get around that. Anyway, what are we doing? Oh, I know what I'm doing. I wanted to show you. That's right. You can't just got to be GNOME Disks, man. If you're doing it from a command line. People are like, what are you doing, man? What is it doing? Well, we're opening up a graphic application over my local area network with SSH. It's called X forwarding. And even though the system that I'm logged into runs the Wayland desktop, it still works. That to me is very cool. And it will pop up here sooner or later, I hope. Sooner or later. Let's see, is it here? Sometimes it pops up in the background. No, do you see disks? I don't see disks. Just wait, it'll be here momentarily. Once again, this is taking longer than anticipated to make this work. There it is. Okay. So what you're looking at here is GNOME Disks running on the other machine that I just logged into. And it shows that we have a 258 gigabyte hard drive on this machine, which is true. Now, the 258 gigabyte hard drive, these were on sale. I bought a couple of these. Actually, I bought 3 of them at the same time. And it was a company called it's SP, Silicon Power, out of Taiwan. And they were selling these cheap little flash drives. And they're not horrible. The quality of them is not bad. They were $20 a piece. Now, these are going into really old laptops. And the one thing that you'll notice here, and if you're not on a high-res device, I'll point it out, is that for the thermometer, it says this machine is at 40°C, 104 degrees. That's a BS number. There is no thermometer or what is it? It's a thermocouple or a thermistor. There is no thermistor in these drives. They're that cheap, so it just gives a BS number back to the like for the smart data and stuff. But there is like smart data for these cheap drives. So that's what it is right there. It's a CP, Silicon Power, solid state disk. And we can look at the smart data for this machine. And the total uptime since I upgraded this machine, which has been probably about a year ago, is 7 days. That shows you how often I run it. And I actually, you didn't see it, but I paused the video and ran over and booted the machine up and then came back here, but I had paused it to do that. I very rarely pause videos during these things, but that's one time I did. Anyway, getting back to what we were talking about, is swap space. So we have these really small drives in these machines, which for these computers is fine. I have 2 laptops. One of them is a laptop. It's an HP that Cindy uses. That's my lady. And then I have another machine that essentially I use for 2 reasons. Number one is like any kind of a Zoom call, anything like that. I just use that old laptop because then I don't have any. It's all Intel. It's an old Dell, and it's an Inspiron from many, many years ago. That machine's almost 10 years old. And it works great because it's all real basic, and it's got a webcam, microphone in it, and everything. I don't have to do anything. I just, boom, log in. And that way I don't have to do it on my main machine. So that's what it's around for. Anyway, so we have a root directory here where the system lives, and then we have swap space, which is 4 gigabytes. The machine has 4 gigabytes of RAM in it, and that would be, this is one of the few exceptions to using a swap partition opposed to a swap file. So when you install Ubuntu or regular Linux Mint, if you do manual partitioning, then you can just choose that, and then Ubuntu knows that you have the swap space. And it will not create a swaps file automatically. So let me show you a trick here while we're sitting here, because, you know, I started GNOME Disks, right? You can see how often I did that because I just started out with disks. I didn't even think. But if I would have done this, let me show you a trick here. If I would have done this like this and put that ampersand after the name of the program, we will open it again. Do you notice there it said that it gave us a number there right here? Okay, what I have done is I have started that program and I've done it in the background. So GNOME Disks is running, but I can still do other things on this machine, like list the home directory, and let's run htop. All right, this is htop running on the old Dell laptop. So in this machine we have a Core Duo processor, and there's our 2 cores. The machine has 3.7 gigabytes of RAM available. Some of that is being used for video because it has Intel graphics. And then we have the 4 gigabyte swap space. So yeah, that's how that works. Now it'll probably take just as long to get the disks program to open up as it did before, but it is actually happening in the background. So there is GNOME Disks running on this other machine, being forwarded through the network. X and Wayland is a server client type setup, which means that you can have a program running on one machine and you can display it on another. And I'm not going to get any deeper into that because I will get it wrong, because my dyslexia kicks in and I get the server client relationship reversed and people go, huh? What are you talking about? But basically what it is this is a very old thing in Unix, that when the X display environment was, the display manager was figured out years ago, they wanted to be able to do this. So we could do stuff just like this. We don't have to see the whole desktop. We can just pull one thing through there. Okay. So I guess we could go ahead. Now, I went ahead and closed that program so it's not running in the background anymore. And I can check that by doing jobs. And you see we have nothing running. There's nothing. The jobs command will tell you. So if I... let's see, let's put htop in the background and see what that does. Now, it's not going to do anything, but let's see if I can... I'm proving a point here. Okay, yes, it's running in the background. It's paused. It's not actually doing anything, I don't think, that you could see, but it's there. So now if I do jobs, see, it tells me that I have one job, and that is htop running in the background. So, smarty pants, how do you get back to that? Let's see, I think it's... let's see if I remember how to do this. Is it... I think this is it. Now, I'm just playing right now, guys. Foreground 1. Yes, that's how you do it. So we had htop running in the background on this terminal. And I was able to bring it forward. So you can have other things running as well. So let's do that one more time so that people understand what I just did. One more time, just in case you're confused. Old Linux guys are now going, I get it, man, move on. We know. So I can run htop, and now I can put it in the background. And it tells me what job is running. Now, I can, if I want to go grab that, then I can foreground the job number I want. So in this case, I have 1 right there, so we'll use 1, and it comes back. So you could start up 3 or 4 applications from the terminal and have them running in the background, and like if you had a terminal-based mail client or something like that, and you can go get it. You can also do this, which is, I'm going to Control and Z. All right. That stopped htop, and it put it in the background, and it just told me. It said, okay, this is not running in the background. This is paused. See that right there? Now, to get that again, we can just do foreground 1. So Control Z pauses it. There you go. little bit of terminal magic for you. This is why I like doing these kinds of videos. I don't have to think. I mean, I don't have to have a plan. Yeah? Sit here and play. By the way, speaking of terminals, in the last video I posted where I was installing Linux Mint LMDE, apparently I used the sudo command and called it sudo. All right? And somebody corrected me, and I have my fingers up in quotes about correcting me, and said that technically speaking, you should not say sudo, you should say sudo, because the command is substitute user do. I know that. Taught that a long time ago, as a matter of fact. I say sudo. It's become a colloquialism. You'll hear a lot of people in the Linux community that say that. And I don't think I'm going to change because I've been doing it for 25 years. I've tried to change certain things that I say, like I don't say data anymore. I try and say data. Because, yeah, it is data. But I grew up hearing it data as well. Data, data. It's tomato, tomato. You know, you say tomato, I say tomato. You say potato, I say go screw yourself. Stop correcting people for what they say. Anyway, I got into a lively discussion in the comments with that guy because I said, yes, technically you're correct. I mean, I was nice about it. I said, yes, technically you are correct, but I've been saying it this way for 25 years and I'm not going to change. And he's like, people are stupid. Why is it when you get you learn something new, you're going to be whatever? You're a loser. And I kind of had to go back and say, well, maybe it's not your job to go around and correct everybody's pronunciation on the internet. Have you ever thought about that? Because he said, it boggles my mind how people can be so stupid. It's the thing about working with nerdy engineering types. Some of them have no social skills. So anyway, I ended up just saying maybe it's not your job to go back and correct everybody, and deleted the thread, which is what I do with stuff like that. So anyway, what have we got here? Now we've got virtual machines all running HTOP. I hope you found this fascinating, and you probably did, right? I think this is the Ubuntu machine. Yeah, Ubuntu 2204 is running. So let's go ahead and do this. And we can shut down Ubuntu. So yeah, man, I just wanted to kind of show you what I was into and what was going on with me. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this, but I do plan on testing out some more distros and playing around with other things going on. I kind of want to check in on some stuff that I haven't looked at in a long time. Like I looked at Pop! OS today, and I'm sorry, it's not something that I would use, although I could see why somebody would want to use it. It was actually very cool. It was out of your way. System 76 has done a pretty decent job putting a nice cap on Ubuntu. If you don't like the Ubuntu vanilla experience, they have their own little spin on it. It's not bad at all. They have their own little store and everything. So let's go ahead and power off this machine. And somebody's going to say, you don't have to use sudo to power off the machine. See, I said it right that time. Let's do sudo. Just to make people mad. Anyway, I can hear it now. People are saying, you don't have to use elevated privileges. Yes, you do, especially if you do it through SSH, which I do all the time on these network machines that I'm always playing with. So I'm used to, go ahead and let's try it without elevated privileges on this one. So we get out of there, and I want to make that smaller, and let's just see if power off works. Yep. So we'll shut that machine down. And I want to show you something. I got one more thing to show, which I find very useful when dealing with... what, did I never log into this machine? Yeah, I logged into it. Oh, it went to... screensaver kicked in. That's what the deal is. That's what the deal is. I had never turned that off. Okay, because I was like, whoa, I thought I logged into that. Yes, you did. Oh, speaking of terminals, that's something I need to show you. Two things. So, let's power this off. There it goes. Have we turned off all the VMs yet? Oh, I got one more running. Linux Mint. So yeah, if you're sitting directly in front of the machine, you usually don't need to have elevated privileges to turn it off from the terminal. If you are logged in to another machine, as a matter of fact, let's do that real quick here. Let's go to make those bigger so people can see. So I want SSHN 16, and let's see if we can just power it off. Because the only reason I had this machine up and running was to show you. See, it won't let you do it. It says, nope, we're not doing that. Nope, 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 nope. So you have to do it with elevated privileges. Okay, that machine is now closed. So I had said that I had ran into a bug with the terminal in LMDE 6. Remember that? I was trying to get it to not show a menu bar. So if I right click on this terminal, well, it's running a program apparently, but if I right click on the terminal and I go to, you can see it has down here, wait a minute, I got ahead of myself. Hold on. You see where it says show menu bar? I can turn it on, right? Okay. And I thought, why can't I get that to stick? Remember? I thought, oh, that's a bug. There's a problem there. That's not a bug. It's not a bug at all. Let me show you. Somebody pointed this out in the comments, and I put a pinned comment up there saying that I had, finally figured it out. If you go to General, see up here, Show Menu Bar by default when you launch the terminal in new terminals. That's all you got to do. So they have a temporary setting here, which is the one that I found and was going, oh, that's where you change that. But I hadn't really gotten into the deep down settings in the terminal in so long that I forgot about the other one. So that's what was going on in that video. Now let me show you one of the cool things that you can do with VMs before I shut this down that I really like. So every time that you want to start a new machine, right, you can go in here and click New, and then you can go through and build a new machine. Oh, I was about to start off full of them. A new, dummy, not start. Duh. Anyway, you can go through the wizard here, and it will run you through the process of getting the machine basically set up so you can install it. That's great. But if you're like me and you have specific settings that you like to use all the time, which I do, like I don't use NAT, I use a bridged network, so it goes out and gets its own IP address and all that stuff. So we could consider this Linux Mint machine here to be like the basic version of the machine that I want to use every time, right? So what we can do is right-click, and then we can clone a machine, and we give it a new name, and we'll just stick with Linux Mint Clone because we're only doing it for the purposes of the video. And you can put it in a different directory if you want to. See, right now it's putting it in VMs. And what I like to do is go in here like so and tell it that I want it to reset everything. So it resets all network. In other words, now we're dealing with a new machine as far as the network is concerned, which is what you want. You don't want the machine to have the same MAC address as any other machine running, in case for some reason or other you have to get into it that way. And then I can, we don't want to keep the same disk names, and we don't want to keep the same hardware UUIDs either. We want everything to be new, except we are making a copy of this machine. So we'll go next, and we want a full clone, which means that we're not going to, a linked clone is where the new clone becomes a delta of the old machine, which is another thing that you can do. You can take snapshots of these machines, and it will then create another file in the directory that you can roll back to. So we're doing clones right now. I'll look at snapshots in just a second. So I turn that thing loose. Now what it's going to do is it's going to make a completely new copy of that machine, and it's going to import it here. And then what I can do is for instance, like if I wanted to test Pop! OS this morning, which I did, I cloned the Ubuntu machine, and then all I did was when I did that, I gave it the name Pop! OS, right? Because Pop! OS is Ubuntu with buttons. It's got stuff on top of it. That's all it is. No big deal. It's the same thing. And then all I have to do is go in and just erase the drive and start over, and it's like we've done the same thing. Of course, this is taking a little while to do this. I was kind of hoping it would get done here. The other thing that you can do is take snapshots, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So you have a virtual machine and you have it in a certain state, and now you want to see what happens when you make these changes or install this software. And you create a snapshot of that machine in a known good working state, and you give that snapshot a name, and it's like before I screwed it up. And then all you have to do after that, if you want to roll back, is just tell the system that you would like to delete those snapshots. You would like to go back to the way it was. This is great for testing, because if you're working with software configuration, you can, if it works, great, keep it. That's all right. You can actually go back and say, okay, get rid of the snapshots, but keep the current configuration. There's a way to do that. And let's do this right. Let's do this here. So we're going to open up our Linux Mint clone. This is a clone of the other machine. Let's go ahead and just boot this up so it works. Now, as far as the network is concerned, this is a different machine. So we're going to let's figure out something to do with it here, and then we'll play with snapshots for a moment. You don't have anything better to do. Let's just sit here and talk about VMs. This is fun for me. Other people might find it somewhat boring, but you know, there's always other programming to watch on YouTube. Some reason I never customized this terminal except giving it a little background. So what are we going to do? All I'm going to do is we're just making sure the machine runs. It's okay, it works. So that works. Okay, good. We have confirmed that. So we'll go ahead and power it off. We need to boot it up to make sure that the copy is going to work. There you go. No typos, just do the thing. Okay, so that machine works. We know it works. And we're going to snapshot that machine into its present state. So I'm going to go in here, and we'll look for this on the list. Let's see where it is. Settings, expand, move to group, start, search, sort. Create shortcut on desktop, show in file manager. Where are the snapshots? Have they changed the feature now? Check for updates. Move to group. Oh, here we go. Snapshots. They moved it. All right, so we need to create a snapshot. Current state is what the snapshot is. So, okay, so I guess we can we give this a name? Is that what this is? Yep, we give it a name. So we'll, current state is fine. We'll stay with that. Take a snapshot, done. Okay, snapshot 1. And just leave it. Let's just leave it where it's snapshot 1. Okay, it took a snapshot. It's really that fast. Now, and it says here that it is a snapshot. You can really tell that I have not done this in a while. So if I was actually doing a real video and not just goofing around, I would actually have done this so I'd know what I was talking about. We'll figure it out, right? So we need to make a change. Log into the machine and do something stupid just to make a change. Alright, Control T, and we'll touch a file. We're going to put it on this is our big change to the machine. Watch. I want to touch it. I want to create it. You're not going to let me? Do I have to be in the directory for that to work? I guess so. Try this again. Okay, now I want to touch. Hello. Okay, yeah. Now it works. You can't do that. You can't do that in another directory. I didn't know that about touch. I thought you could create files wherever you wanted to. That's the biggest change that we made. All right. Jeez. Okay. All right. So what did we just do? Let's go over here, and I'll just show you. I think I can show this to you. Go to File System. Go down to our VM directory, and there's our Linux Mint clone machine. And if we go in here and we look at what we got, we now have a snapshots directory. And if you open that up, you notice that we have this file here. Now what that file is the difference between the snapshot and what we just did to the machine. Okay. So let's see, how do we roll back? I'm going to remember how to do this now. Okay, snapshot. Clone, take, snapshot 1. We're going to restore. We're going to do a snapshot 2. And then I think if I delete, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I think if I delete the snapshot, let's see what this does. Well, actually, technically speaking, if I delete these snapshots, it doesn't matter. Let's see if we've rolled back. We'll try that once we figure that out. So we'll open up the machine, see if it's still on the log. Still on the desktop, that is. Is this fun or what? You got more than you bargained for with this video. See what we're doing here. See? When I rolled it back, I got rid of it. So I can just go ahead and do this. No, I don't want to power off the machine. Do it from inside the machine. Control T, power off. I don't know why I wanted to do that, but it don't matter because I'm going to delete the thing. That's why I was thinking. So anyway, you get the idea. Now, if you delete these two snapshots, if we get rid of the snapshots and we just go delete, delete, okay, they go away. Now we should be able to go in here to VMs again. And when we look in here, we'll see there's nothing in the snapshots directory. We can actually just delete that directory. So just got rid of that, and it's like it was never there. So how cool is that, folks? Now, when you get done with a virtual machine, okay, when you get done with your virtual machine, you're done playing with it, and let's see, I want to look at Details, that's what we want. Okay, so that's how they do that now. I seem to recall in past versions that the snapshots were part of this menu. Maybe not. I could be wrong. So once you're done playing with your virtual machine, and you know I'm never going to do this again, we're not going to do it, all you have to do is come in here and do remove. It's going to ask you whether you want to remove the machine from the list here, like just keep the files and maybe bring it back in later, or would you like to completely remove all the files? Yes, I want to remove all the files. It's gone. So how do you add a virtual machine? Well, you go and look for a particular file. So what you would do is you would come here and go add, and then it goes to where your VMs are stored. And let's say we wanted to add LMDE. See, now it's looking for lmde.vbox. And that is the description for your virtual machine. And then you click on that file, and it imports it. And now you have access to it all the time. Very cool, huh? I hope you enjoyed playing around with computers with me today in this video, boys and girls. We will do it again sometime soon. Comments, suggestions, always welcome. Thank you for watching. Trying to turn off the dang recorder. Press the wrong key. Let's try that again. Later.